Welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for May 18th, 2022. We will follow the agenda that was posted in the TSC repo in issue number 1228 as normal. Before we get started, any announcements that people would like to share? I guess it's worth mentioning OpenJS World is coming up in a few weeks. So we're going to have a collaborator summit there. There's some great sessions that have been suggested, and there's some planning going around in terms of the node sessions and layout and stuff like that. So if you're interested, you can head over to the OpenJS Summit repo. Still room, I think, to propose new sessions, and we hope to see a bunch of collaborators there to discuss things. I guess moving on to the CPC and board meeting updates. Rich, anything on the CPC front?
There's a working meeting this week about code of conduct update type things. If I understand correctly, I did not attend. They did record it, so I'll watch it or read the minutes when I get a chance. But I don't think there's anything announcement worthy. If you were there and you have a contrary opinion, please feel free to correct me.
Yeah, I didn't make it this week to that one in particular either, but I agree that that's what I think the topic was, to work on proposing changes to the existing documented processes. On the board front, nothing that I know of to update on. So unless there's any questions on either of those, we can move on to the regular agenda. Okay, so the first one on the list is revert the change of network interfaces from string to integer, number 43054, I think, as I understand, and the second one, which is related to, I guess, 43041, one's probably one's the pull request, one's the PR. I think that this was discussed and agreed last time, right?
Yeah, that's correct. The PR is open, and I guess we can just use the review process. No need to discuss it here.
Right. Okay. If there's nothing to discuss, should we just take those two off of the agenda, like remove the agenda tag?
Yeah, as you want, or we could leave it there in case the PR gets stored.
Okay, maybe I'll take it off of the issue and leave it on the PR then. How about that? Okay, we'll do that if that's nobody's concerned. Okay, moving on to the next one, number 42981. This is one that I opened about auto-closing stale PRs. I took a look in our last sort of triage day, and we've got, at that time, we had 340 open PRs, 117 which are older than a year. And, my thinking is, unlike an issue could be open and, it could be valid forever if we don't fix it. A PR is very likely that after a year, it's going to be stable, out of date, especially if there's no comments or activity on it. So, my proposal is we should look at doing something where we have the bot find PRs which are older than a year and haven't been commented on in 6 months. And I'm 99% sure that most of those will never land. And, we'd still have the, hey, it's been 5 months or whatever the thing was, it's been 5 months without any discussion on this and it's over a year. So we're going to close it if there isn't any discussion in the next month. So somebody could easily chime in and say, no, I still want to keep this alive, but otherwise then have it close when it hits that 6 month range. Put it on to get, to find out if there's any TSC members who are like, no, we should absolutely not do that, or, get some feedback. There was some discussion in the issue itself. I think a few people were, or at least one person was kind of like, well, it's not very friendly, but I think there's enough sort of counter, or there's enough people also saying, well, actually, this might be a little bit friendlier, that, I'd be reasonably comfortable moving forward with this, given the feedback that's in the issue itself. But I wanted to have it on the agenda here to see, if people have thoughts they want to add into the discussion.
A concrete piece of feedback that I and probably others have received from people who have basically, if it's possible to quietly table flip and go away, but quietly table flipped and go away, has been that from non-collaborators, but from contributors, has been that it is incredibly frustrating to open a pull request and not get a yes and not get a no and get endless discussion and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. So I think closing it is actually a kinder, better thing to do than to just leave it open and have it be something that we all know is never actually going to land. So yeah, I think so. I'm normally sympathetic to the idea that bots doing things can seem impersonal at least, but yeah, this is one of several situations in Node where I'm in favor of the bot acting.
Any other thoughts or comments? I guess, like, in absence of anybody like here showing, having any concerns, I'd volunteer to try and figure out what we can do as the next step to turn this on. I'm not sure if what I proposed the stale bot will just do, but as long as people are like, yeah, that seems reasonable, I'll take it on to go take a look, see how we figure out how to do it.
I'm hearing there's no objections, so I think you can definitely go ahead with it. And anything you do, it'll probably have to be a pull request anyway, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It'll likely get further review when that happens. So
yeah. Right. Yeah, we can wordsmith the wording and all that. So okay. So I'm just going to type in discussing the last TSC meeting, no objections to proceed is what I'm going to say. Okay. And I will take it off the agenda so that it doesn't show up again. Okay, thanks. Let me just quickly note here, discuss some pause, comments, and no objections. Okay, the next one then is number 42675, Butyl add parsargs module. This one I don't know if this is the one for the vote or not, but I know we have a vote. And I guess I was hoping we can close out on this one. It's been at least 2 weeks since we started the vote. And Ben was asking me recently, like, okay, when do we think we might have an answer on this one?
Yeah, so it's been 13 days as of now, and there are 16 people that have voted. So yeah, 4 that have not. Yeah, I'm fine with closing the vote if no one has objections.
Are you able to take a peek and see what the results are right now, so we can determine if we've already met the threshold for, as we have vote threshold metrics in our governance?
The threshold would be that if there's a winner, the only way that there's no result if 8 people vote for one thing and 8 people vote for another, right?
I think last time it was more complicated.
It depends on the number of abstentions. It's all right. I think I'm gonna actually I rescind my question. I forgot that we're doing Condorcet, and that makes everything quick. That makes questions like that less straightforward than they have been in the past. So I'll just back off.
Right. There's only 2 options this time, which I think simplifies it. So I propose we just close the vote. If it's close or tied, we can figure out what that means. Any objections to closing the vote?
Antoine, you're okay with closing the vote today, or you would rather wait until Friday?
I'm okay. I think 13 days is enough time.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so I'll type in the minutes that we have agreement to close the vote. Let's do that. We can post the results and the issue and hopefully unblock that landing.
Everybody here voted, right?
If not, you got like to.
All right. Anyway, let's move on.
Anyway, yep. But yes, if please. Anyway, so we'll go on to the next one. Global fetch break source map. So this is number 42638. I'm not sure who put this on the agenda. If you're here, please speak up. I guess it was Matteo. This isn't one of the best times, but I think the issue here, let's see, is there anything that says, I guess the fundamental thing is that making it global collided with, I think, polyfill, like existing modules that would have then, or polyfills that would have added it. And because it's not the same as the other ones, the only real way to unbreak that would be to not have it be global. So I think that's kind of why it was on the agenda, was for us to discuss that aspect.
This is probably something that can wait another week, and we can wait until Matteo's here, unless there's somebody here who feels like they can sort of guide this conversation.
I'd have one question to ask, and then we can move on if nobody has strong ideas. Is I think this might be a like not only a fetch question, but sort of a global. If we're putting APIs that are web APIs and that are global in the browser, should they be automatically global in Node or not? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think the assumption has always been yes, but yeah, maybe after this conversation, we may rethink that.
We did have agreement about that before, I believe, because like at least as far as I remember, we have like always when there was a new API added to Node that was also in the browser as global, it would be made global in Node as well.
Okay, that interesting. And so okay, maybe we'll wait to let Matteo lead the specific discussion here. Although I think that's really the fundamental question, is like, we broke something by making it global. What do we do? So
I do think people who haven't been following that issue would be a really good idea. It's not, it's relatively short as these issues go, and I think this is a pretty good thing to. I think we all can wrap our heads around this one, and probably should.
Yeah, and I think if we can either reaffirm that global question of like, yeah, like the next time the exact same thing could happen, and if we can think about it in the context of that, like, yes, we should make it global, and therefore things will break, and we understand that, and that's the way it is, or not, so that we don't have to discuss the same kind of thing every time. Think about it in that context would be great. Okay, so we'll defer detailed discussion until next week when Matteo is here. Have some talk discussion about problem in general. Okay, the next one is rename default branch from master domain. This is number 33864. Richard, do you want to update us on that one?
Yeah, we've just in the last 20 minutes, half hour, renamed the branch of the build repo. It has broken the Windows build, and I think I've just fixed it. But yeah, just be aware if anything looks weird in the CI, report it either in the Slack channel or open an issue. We thought it should be safe to do, but obviously we've missed the Windows thing. But the branch has been renamed now, so it's done. We'll try and fix up anything else that crops up if it does. But
that was in the Windows job.
Yeah, there were some variables embedded in the job, so they didn't show up when we searched the content repo.
Yep.
So I think I've caught all the ones Windows. Hopefully that should be okay. But yeah, see how it goes.
So yeah. Go ahead. I think the other thing was as we did that, we had a discussion, and we think in the same sense as we thought for the build repo, that the Git redirects, the GitHub redirects, and sort of the behavior would mean that actually we're okay in renaming the main the node repo as well. That one will have a much broader impact in terms of all the collaborators may have, will have to do some work in terms of their next potential push or landing PRs. So we think we need more messaging, but other than that, like, we couldn't think of things we thought would be a problem. We thought it would be a good place here in the TSC meeting to see if anybody else can think of things that they think they're worried about or which might be issues, and we could talk about that, and then also talk about what kind of messaging should we do before we do that, and how do we schedule doing it.
So I think from memory, the main concern before was about accidentally pushing to a branch called master after the rename happened. There are now protection rules in GitHub for preventing accidental pushes to named branches. And following the last TSC call, Nikita, I think, came up with a workaround to stop administrators from also accidentally pushing if you require branches to have signed commits. Most of our repositories have a mixture of signed and non-signed commits, which would seem to prevent accidentally pushing to those branches. So I think we've got protection rules to stop people accidentally pushing to a master branch. So the thing that would break would be people would need to update their local references so that instead of an upstream pointing to master, it would have to point to the renamed branch, which is going to be main. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else has seen any other issues after renaming other repositories in the org.
I think there was only one, and I'm only vaguely remembering it now. It was kind of an edge case, and it may be that GitHub fixed some things after we thought they were reported. But it was such a long time ago that I don't remember now. And it was, we're down to two. We just did build, so we're down to maybe 2 or 3 repos, and the rest of them were all pretty much fine. So I guess it sounds like nobody else has things top of their, that they think of that might break, or. I think I'll take silence meaning no. I guess then the next specific question is like, what do we think is enough messaging to collaborators? Is like, we can open an issue with an app mention, or we can app mention the issue we've got open. What do we think we need to do in terms of telling people it's going to happen? I
mean, app mentioning, doing both of those things, and other than that, I don't know that, maybe something in the the relevant OpenJS Slack channel, maybe. There might be 2 of them actually. Yeah. I mean, we don't want to email collaborators directly, and I don't know that, like, tweeting something out is a great way to communicate with collaborators or anything. So I think that like doing those things, app mentioning them in an issue, app mentioning them in a discussion, and putting something in the Slack. I mean, the other thing is that, like, the number of collaborators that this is actually going to affect is just mostly the people who actually land stuff, locally. Oh, I guess we probably want to remember that. I don't know, triagers can't push. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, the number of collaborators who actually are going to be affected by this is a very small subset of the full collaborators, and they're very active, and they'll see these things. So I think doing those,
people creating PRs will need to, like, if they're gonna update, like rebase, whenever you rebase, you probably have to rebase against main now instead of master.
But again, it's going to be a small proportion of collaborators that would actually need to do that. It probably comes back down to your earlier comment about PRs that have been open for ages. Obviously, the longer the PR's been open, more likely they would have to rebase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is like, okay, so someone, you know, someone hits the glitch, and like, you know,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this comes down to, you know, if we schedule this, we're probably as ready as we are now. Then, you know, if we come down another month, what's going to change? If we're not active, if we're not actively doing things, I don't think the situation will be any different next month or 2 months. So the main thing is to, you know, give people a chance to say, well, wait a minute, what about this? Just in case there is something we've forgotten. But then other than that, pull the trigger, I guess, and make the switch and deal with the fallout.
Yeah, I mean, this issue has been open a very, very long time. So, you know, it's anybody paying attention has been, you know, been aware at some point that this is coming.
It's either we have to sort of just pick a date and aim for that date, or backtrack. And I don't think backtracking is you know, an option we need to go down. So yeah, if we, I guess, however we decide when we're going to do it.
I think, you know, from what I hear is I don't hear any major concerns. I hear the sort of what I'm, you know, what you're exposing, mentioning there, like we're probably in as good a position as we're going to be, as long as we pick a date, which is like, we picked the after the last release to do the build one, just in case, maybe we do the same thing. But it sounds like I don't hear any concerns from TSC members on proceeding, and, you know, Richard, myself, and anybody else who's kind of interested in doing the rename and being, you know, watching for things, we can just pick a date and move forward. Does that sound right to everybody?
I mean, the rename itself is simple. It's a little form in GitHub. You click OK and it renames. So it's just proceeding cautiously, and yeah, just.
But it's more like you said, being a little bit available to see if something goes wrong. And
if all hell breaks loose, is this something we can roll back?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe we can, you know, if we rename it to main, we can rename main back to master. I believe we can do that.
Just curious, does GitHub have some kind of, you know, branch alias feature or something like that?
So when you rename a branch, it will redirect references. So for example, we've renamed build now. If you go to like the raw URLs for pulling things via either the GitHub API or directly from the web, if you go to like /master as the branch name, GitHub will redirect you to main because the branch has been renamed. The issue before was if you didn't have branch protection in place, if someone then pushed to master, so you had a main branch and a master branch, that would break the redirection. But with the branch protection to stop people pushing to master, that redirection would be in place. So anyone trying to get to the master branch in GitHub would be redirected. So what isn't redirected is if you have a local references in your Git checkout. So if you've got a branch locally and that's set an upstream to like upstream master or origin master, whatever, you've named your remote pointing to the upstream main repository, that you would have to manually update. And we would need to put those instructions. GitHub tells you when you do the rename, but we'll copy those instructions into the messaging out to collaborators. So that's the only thing. GitHub can't update your own local references, and probably shouldn't be. I mean, you should be in control of your own references, given that Git's decentralized. But if you are going via the web, so if you are trying to access URLs to GitHub, then GitHub will redirect.
That's why it's still working for build. Like you'll see in the build jobs, they still have the original references, and we'll fix those up over time. And same with the docs that we have, we'll have to fix those up over time as well.
Unless it's likely to change our decision, should we
Right.
not get into nuts and bolts on that right now? And because I do want to make sure we have plenty of time for the end of life date for Node.js 16 discussion.
Yep. Well, yeah, you know, the unless does anybody have any? I guess first one we should ask specifically. It did sound like you had a question on the front. Have we addressed that adequately before we move on?
That's a question to Robert, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. I see some nodding. So, you know, what I've noted is, you know, no concerns from TSC members on proceeding. We'll pick a date. We'll do that, the messaging, which is basically going to be an app mention and some Slack channel posts, and then it'll happen.
I don't want to split hairs, but I wouldn't say no concerns. I would say no objections.
No objections. No objections. Okay, sure.
Yes, objections, no.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. We're all, you know, yeah, I get your point. We can all be a little anxious that hope nothing happens, but we know we need to do it.
Cat going on. Yes.
Sure. Okay. Got it. Okay. We'll move on. I think what I'd suggest is that I guess we have a fair amount of time, but from the 2022 TSC chair election, that's actually quite quick. There were only 2 candidates, myself for chair and Matteo for vice chair.
I'm not elected.
As per our governance, you know, unless there's objections, we can just affirm the people. I've said we, you know, give people till Friday to do that. So, you know, just making this visible here, and otherwise we'll declare that closed by the end of the week.
I object to your election. No, I don't.
Okay.
I withdraw my objection. I just want there to be a little drama.
Yep, there we go. F1 as this. Okay. So done that, we'll move on to the next one, which could take more time. So the end of life dates for Node 16 and OpenSSL 1.1.1. Richard, I know you've been sort of looking at this, so maybe you can give us an update.
Yeah, so I've been exploring whether we could take future patch updates of OpenSSL from Red Hat or its family of Linux distributions. For example, Red Hat 8 has OpenSSL 1.1.1 in it, and that will be supported by Red Hat in their distributions until the end of life of Red Hat 8, which is beyond the end of life of upstream OpenSSL 1.1.1 and beyond the end of life of upstream Node 16. I've been doing a sort of technical evaluation to see whether we could even just technically do that switch, and I've run into a few issues with that. It's looking doubtful that this will be a workable solution. And there are other questions over, for example, even though it's supported in Red Hat, it would only be tested against their Linux distributions. So, you know, Windows, Mac, it's probably a low chance of things breaking, because by then, when OpenSSL is OpenSSL 1.1 stops being supported, it's very likely to get drastic structural changes. But yeah, I haven't seen anything in my investigation so far to change my mind from the initial recommendation. It was just I was asked politely to exhaust other possibilities. Yeah, is that fair, Michael?
Yeah, I think basically when we started, it was like, hey, maybe there's something exactly what we need over here. And so Richard's been looking to see how close to what we need it is or isn't. And it sounds like it's less close than we thought, which means it's less likely. But I think still worth, you know, closing out Richard's investigation, because like cutting support by 7 months is significant. And if there was an easy way to avoid that, it would be good. But we'll see what it comes out of. And as Richard says, not looking as positive as it once did. I see Rich has his hand up.
Yeah, since there is consensus on ending support early, I don't see anybody saying not to, and a lot of people saying we should, including me and Richard. I wonder if we should actually make that decision to do that now, and if Richard's investigation into using Red Hat, OpenSSL, yada 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 to extend support actually ends up panning out, we can always revise that. We can always rethink that decision and have a discussion. But since that seems unlikely, I wonder if we want to make the decision now, unless Richard feels confident that he only needs like another like week or something to just put the final nail in the coffin, so to speak. Because yeah, I mean, like I feel like as soon as possible, and we, much better to tell them in May than in August, and so I don't know.
I think, Richard, you'd only need a week, right? So I
only need a few more days. I probably would have had it done by today, but we had a bit of an issue yesterday with some of the other build machines that I had to rebuild in a hurry.
Oh yeah, I saw that. So okay, so basically, in a nutshell, then Richard's going to look at stuff a few more days, and barring finding something very unexpected and very positive about the possibility of going that route, we're just going to decide to shorten support by 7 months next week. Is that like roughly where we're at?
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. So okay. Yeah, I guess we thought that we'll make an actual decision in the next TSC meeting.
Or just in the issue tracker.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. One of the two. Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay, that was not nearly as long as I thought it was going to be. Sorry, someone had something to say and it wasn't me. I'm just going to shut up.
Okay. Right. Anybody else? No other comments, thoughts? We can move on to the strategic initiatives then. Let me just get there.
We have one new one that doesn't have a TSC member as its champion, right? So
yep, that's exactly one of the things I thought would be good to discuss.
So given that, we probably want to return to the practice of soliciting strategic planning updates in the actual issue, and at mentioning people who are the champions to provide those updates in the issue. And then if we need an update at a meeting for a strategic initiative that isn't a TSC member's initiative, we can invite the person as a guest.
Yeah, I offered, I asked Shenzong to like, hey, if you can give us comment like people have been doing on the issue, and also that like said, hey, if you want to give a live update, just let me know and we'll get you on the agenda. This is kind of like a little new for us, but I think is the right thing to do, is that we don't need TSC members to be the champions. We want to enable other people. So we can see how that goes, and like if that turns out to be a barrier, maybe we'll think of something else. And we'll try and like, look at those updates still in this section. I think it's good for us to look at them, because one of the goals is to make sure that we're aware of what's going on and so forth there. And that one is on the Shadow Realm. It looks interesting. It may be sort of a longer term challenging thing, but I think it's interesting. It'd be good to have some visibility on the TSC on work going on there. Looking at the ones that are in the list. So core promise APIs, Antoine, anything to mention on that one?
No update this week.
Okay. I'm looking to see Joy, anything on the startup side of things?
No, not much to update since the last meeting.
Okay. I'm looking at who else is here. On the next 10, I don't have an update other than, we do have a number of sessions planned for the OpenJS Collaborator Summit, both some ones which are specific to next 10 or related. I think there's one in Dici, so I think we'll have some good sessions there. And I think that covers the current strategic initiatives. So I think that takes us to the end of the agenda. So is there anything else that we should talk about before we close out? Well, if not, thanks for everybody's time, and thanks for those who might be watching on the YouTube stream. We'll see everybody in GitHub and next week. Thanks. Bye.